in Mexico. They will not give me his address. But if he sees this book, he'll know I do not value him the less. For art is long and life must end, my earlier publisher and friend.
I always feel a bit like the Wandering Jew because of taxation problems, always having to move one place to another, building houses and traveling and helping other artists, which if I had to earn a living, I couldn't have. All creative people work from their subconscious outwards, and intellectuals work from their intellect inwards, you see. I'm not an intellectual at all. In fact, most intellectuals resent me. They all realize I'm not one of them, and it's quite nasty. To them, I'm sort of an overgrown child. And I always try, and now that I'm old, saying I'm in my second childhood, you must excuse me. Of course, that's not strictly true, because I've never grown out of my first childhood.
The Sunday market at Ilitla, 400 miles north of Mexico City. Typical of other rural villages in Mexico, except that the villagers tend to be more prosperous, the direct result of the rich Englishman who has made his home among them.
I can't buy any pants. Nobody's as fat as I am in this town. The waist size is all too small. Well, there's a hell of a hat.
Although he's been around for some 30 years, he remains here, as at West Dean, the object of unending speculation and curiosity.
Lucky boy.
Besides adopting an entire Mexican family, Edward James is the largest employer of local labor, recruited to help him realize his architectural dreams and follies in the neighboring jungle. The Mexicans are undaunted by such eccentricities. Their unpredictable temperament is well suited to Edward's own.
I've always been very unpunctual, not meaning to be, but felt guilty about it, and slightly illogical. And it was such bliss to come to a country in which, by comparison to the inhabitants, I was extremely punctual and extremely logical. So it sort of got rid of the guilt that I was always made to feel in England by turning up 20 minutes late. Here people are 3 hours late, no thinking of it. So I felt, that I no longer felt guilty of being haphazard.
Long before settling here in Mexico, Edward James' restless spirit led him to Hollywood. The strange vision at West Dean and his admiration for the work of a religious teacher, Gerald Heard, roused his interest in mysticism. Like his friends, Aldous Huxley and Isherwood, he presented himself at Gerald Heard's Hollywood retreat and became a disciple.
The first summer and winter in Beverly Hills, I really was terribly earnest. I became a vegetarian. I didn't go to movies. I refused all parties. And I tried very hard to meditate. And then I was hurt by Gerald Heard, who assumed I was doing it all as a pose. It was just a gratuitous assumption that a so-called millionaire couldn't be seriously a mystic. He was just trying some other gimmick. So I started, little by little, giving up the vegetarianism and not going to cocktail parties because I felt let down. I went from having been on a very high moral level really to a rather low moral level, actually.
To jump from pious introspection to high life among movie stars and British expatriates, frittering away his time in restaurants, owning a house in Malibu as well as Hollywood, it was inevitable that Edward should again become disillusioned, this time with the double standards of the society he had joined, and to set out once more to seek his Shangri-La. The greatest part of Edward's love and loyalty is now directed towards his adopted family in Ilitla. He shares their house and has come to regard it as his real home.
No, io stavo dormendo. Pochino se volò.
His old friendship with Plutarco Gastelum, a Mexican of Indian descent, his companion on many travels, later his manager, remained just as close when Plutarco married Marina and had 4 children, whom Edward now cares for as his own.
No puedo estar feliz porque soy muy picoso.
Plutarco and Marina allow the less fortunate villagers to avail themselves of the facilities in by far the most luxurious house in Ilitla. Although entirely designed by Plutarco, it shows all the signs of his mentor's taste for the fantastic and bizarre. That Edward James has settled here was the result of several forays across the border from California.
I wanted a Garden of Eden set up where everything grew. I saw that Mexico was far more romantic and far more room than there is in crowded Southern California. So I bought 2 sleeping bags and I traveled around the country, and Plutarco came along with me. And we used to sleep in the sleeping bags whenever we saw a turning that looked interesting. For instance, we saw that mountain, the Sierra up there, which is called the Mountain of the Horn in Nahuatl. So we said we must try that. Then I took the car up to here and saw that Ilitla was a very beautiful place, and there wasn't anything as picturesque as Ilitla.
In the early days, Edward had a small house built by the waterfalls in the jungle, hoping to live a hermit's life with only his animals and wild parrots for company.
I didn't have a bathroom at all here in the house. Not a tub, not even a shower. So I used the pools as my bathroom. And it was quite hard to get to them, so I had to climb over rocks and along a very winding path with very thick bushes. So I thought I was completely secluded, and I was shampooing my hair one day, and I heard a rustling sound that I thought was the wind in the bamboos beginning. Then it sounded more like material. So I washed the soap out of my eyes and looked up, and I saw what I thought were about 12 penguins. And I was very surprised, penguins in the tropics, so I rubbed my eyes clear, and then to my horror, I was very astonished and embarrassed, there were 12 nuns. So I took a large leaf from one of those elephant ear leaves called a rehalgaria, and I covered my nudity like Odysseus did when he left the Princess Nausicaa after being shipwrecked in the 7th book of the Odyssey. And I said, I beg your pardon, que puede ofrecerles a ustedes? What can I offer you ladies? And they said, without the least hesitation, without appearing the least put out, can you build us a clinic for the poor and the sick? So I said, oh yes, certainly, mother. I'll build you a clinic if you only let me get dressed and go away for a few minutes so I can get dressed. So I built them a clinic. I hoped it would be a quiet place where I could write books. I have hardly written a single book because I've been busy transforming the gardens. I found such possibilities in the jungle for growing. That's how it happened. Nothing was ever planned. I always wanted it a place to conserve wildlife. I'd like every conceivable animal. I'd be like Noah with the ark if I could. My critics, or people who don't like me, say I like animals because they can't talk back. No?
This Garden of Eden was created by trial and error, and the bureaucratic consent of Latin American officials.
Each parrot had to have a passport, given it by the Mexican consul in Guatemala. And I had 4 crates of orchids. They had to have passports too. But it gave me a taste of the advantages of being a witch. See. Non quiere tomar un perito. No tiene por qué estar.
Now that he may count himself among their number, he feels it politic to remain on friendly terms with other local witches.
El blanco, ¿cuál de los dos le gusta lo más?
But it was a malicious act of God that prompted his most ambitious venture to date.
The building occurred only after the first 20 years here. The first 20 years I was solely interested in horticulture. And then suddenly, in '62, there was a snowfall. Nobody had seen snow before, they didn't know what it was. So when I got back from New York a month later, they said, oh, Don Eduardo, for 3 days, white ashes fell and burned everything. So then I decided I would do something that couldn't be killed by freak weather. So I began building only then, things that looked like trees and plants and flowers. That was the result of the snow.
But the snow hardly accounts for the erection of Edward James's most ostentatious folly.
If I asked my heart and conscience the incentive behind building a tower, I have to admit it was just pure megalomania. I think Aladdin's pantomime had something to do with it, because Aladdin's palace had towers and cupolas rather like this. And then the shapes here, of course, are taken from the nature of the forest. They're sort of instinctively flower shapes and leaf shapes above all, which are inspired by everything round here. But of course nothing is finished, so some of them look very odd. For instance, Plutarcho calls those things helicopters, but they're going to actually turn into capitals. When it is 7 stories high, so now only 3 stories high, it's not even half what it's going to be, there's going to be a huge aviary on top with trees in it. That's why this is so terribly massive, it's full of reinforced concrete, to stand live trees inside so the birds will really feel they're out of doors. Then we'll get all the wild parrots, and when they've bred enough, we'll let them out to multiply in the hills again. And there will be a room for projections and concerts. The principal thing will the tower will be an apiary with a many-sided object, dodecahedron, you know, the 12-sided object, which is in Leonardo's books on architecture. It'll go very slowly round like this, showing a different light. That'll be the top of all. That'll be the 8th floor.
30 workmen, craftsmen and labourers from the village are constantly employed, costing him, with building materials, $1,000 a week, and Edward has no architectural training.
I know nothing about engineering, so I have to use twice the amount of reinforcing steel than necessary in order to be sure they will stand up. In fact, I didn't know I had the capability of being an architect. I do rather clumsy sketches. I used to do rather more careful sketches. The great thing is having found Don Jose, because the previous carpenter never understood anything I drew. I do it a bit at a time, you see. If I said, now look, this is going to be like this, they'd forget it. So I say the next stage is we do this. The ideas come quicker than they could be executed. But I like to make a start on every idea, because then I don't forget it.
There are certainly aesthetic reasons, sometimes practical, for everything he builds, but as yet nothing is completed.
I mean, a lot would probably never be finished. I'd have to be 100 years old to finish them all. But then there's an Arabic proverb somebody once told me, never finish to build thy house, which means always keep on adding something. There's some Arab sage thought of that. I feel I can't be too dotty.